All right, we are now recording. So appreciate everybody jumping on today. We're going to do kind of a technical overview of our Aruba SASE portfolio and our SSE solution. So I'm Josh Mack. I'm the Aruba SASE rep for Ohio. So it's great to meet all of you guys virtually. And so, Mike, do you want to talk about yourself a little bit and Laketech?
Well, it's not about me, about Lake Tech here. But thank you. Thanks everybody for jumping on. We wanted to get this. This is essentially going to be a technical virtual presentation, just making customers aware of the product. Network security is just a multi-tiered strategy and with all sorts of things involved from from the core to the endpoint to the user training, right? So this is going to be the Aruba SASE platform, specifically the SSE product, as Josh mentioned. So we want to just get the conversation going with this type of presentation. So Russell Briggs is your technical subject matter expert. That's going to dive into everything here and speak the rest of the time. So all the sales guys will be quiet and let you listen to Russell dive into everything here. But again, the point is to just get the conversation going. So after Russell's finished, make sure you guys reach out to us, and of course we'll reach out to you to get another conversation going to talk about the product specifically for your environment. So with that, I'm hand it off to Russell and go from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Of course.
Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks again for taking the time to join us today. My name is Russell Briggs. I'm a consulting systems engineer here at HPE Aruba. And that sort of just means that I help out our other SEs when we get into interesting projects or perhaps large deployments. So I am here today to talk about Unified SASE and Zero Trust, sort of the Secure Services Edge and SD-WAN portfolios that we have here at HPE Aruba. And we'll dig into, I guess, let's start by first setting the stage and saying, let me jump to the next slide here, that we're going through probably the most significant network transformation in history. It wasn't that long ago that we all had, little network closets with, air conditioners in them and dimly lit lights and racks full of servers, right? Now, if you go into those same closets, there's probably a couple of Ethernet cables laying on the ground and everything's gone to the cloud. So everything that we're used to has changed. In fact, if you look at the then and now, there is almost, you don't have a choice to move to the cloud, right? And security sort of has to follow that. And previously, if you were in the building, you're next to the servers, you're sort of, trusted, if you will, when you plug in or join the Wi-Fi. And really the only thing that you had to deal with were people's mobile phones and tablets and such. And we could send that off to the public cloud and use various mobile device management tools to sort of enforce policy there. But nowadays, everything sort of looks like that mobile phone or tablet. Even building to building communication might not be the way it was, where you have private networks and everything sort of connected together in your own infrastructure way. Now you're using cloud providers, Office 365, YouTube, AWS, all these different providers out there that have their own security policies in some respects. But now it just sort of feels like you're not able to get your hands around an individual kind of one way to do everything as we did previously. We've got all of these different silos and islands of things that now we have to kind of wrangle and enforce consistent policy across. That covers everything from zero trust network access to secure web gateways to SD-WAN networks, all kinds of stuff, right? So what are the consequences of not doing this? Well, you can have your users throttled effectively if you've got inefficient, VPN tunnels or IPsec tunnels off to cloud security providers. If they're not optimally located, closest to the user, you might have a subpar experience. Your business might even be at greater risk with all of those different silos or islands, in different products there. So Gartner's come out, with the notion of SASE a few years back, and we've really tried to build a product setup here at HPE Aruba that takes all of those individual islands and kind of brings everything together into an easy, manageable, customer-focused solution. So when you do this, you're sort of taking the networking objectives, which can, at times be at odds with your security objectives, and sort of bring those things together into that common end user experience. So in order to do this, you really have to put security at the top of it. When we talk about security first, we have these different use cases or focus areas that along the top might be new to you, but along the bottom are perfectly probably familiar, I would say. So the Unified Security Service Edge, this is the branding that surely you've heard a lot about. The edge, is the part of the WAN, the stepping off point that you've got all of our users focused into, whether they're in an office, whether they're VPNing in, whether they're using their portable devices, no matter where they are. These things, are kind of how you bring those users to the resources that they need to do their job. Zero trust network access, that's that dissolved perimeter. Now, just because you're in the building doesn't mean you're trusted. We have a lot of other constructs now that we use to determine whether or not a user is trusted. Previously, with a VPN application, you might have access to an entire network range. Nowadays, we sort of focus on applications that you have access to versus the network, ranges that you might have had access to previously. So the attack surface is greatly reduced. We've got agent and agentless access. Obviously, if you don't have to have an agent installed, and you can do things through a browser, that can be best for the end user experience. Sometimes the reverse is true. If you've got laptops deployed and all that kind of good stuff, maybe just putting the agent on there is the right way to do things. We can still, of course, do the same thing that you used to be able to with your prior VPN applications, right? We can still connect to a network and give you access to all of the IP addresses within that range, or some of them even. But really today, I think things have sort of transitioned into an application focus, not just from a SSE point of view, but also from an SD-WAN focus, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. And then from a SASE standpoint, that's really where we're sort of taking all of these different islands or silos and bringing things into a cohesive, policy that sort of applies across the board. We will tie these various things together in this unified method. And you can see here on the left-hand side, this is where we focus on the SD-WAN side of things. And then on the right-hand side, that's where we focus on our secure services edge. And then we'll combine the two together for a very well-rounded out solution that doesn't compromise in any one area. So from an SD-WAN standpoint, this is building out that SD-WAN fabric where your locations, your users can have multiple internet connections, and we can figure out which one is maybe the best at any one point in time for any particular application. We can also enforce security from a firewalling standpoint, and for the sites that don't look like your typical SD-WAN site, like your locations and office buildings, we've also found the micro branch aspect of things ties in really nicely for the users who need to be on that SD-WAN fabric, but maybe aren't the typical SD-WAN site with multiple internet providers and that kind of thing. Think of a user maybe at a small home or office location, and maybe you want to deploy an access point, a micro branch access point that will broadcast an SSID like they have at the office. So their corporate assets, their laptops, tablets, and such will just automatically join that network. And then that micro branch access point will form an IPsec tunnel back to the SD-WAN fabric and connect those users at their home locations to the SD-WAN fabric and be able to access, any of the different data centers or overlays that you might have. So that kind of takes two different use cases there and combines them together into a solution that we feel works really well for a lot of customers out there. Now, when we look over at the right-hand side of the screen, this is the secure services edge side of things. This is the zero trust network access, the VPN replacement side of things, the secure web gateway, making sure that when users access the internet that they're not going to sites that they shouldn't, or maybe from a CASB standpoint, maybe they can view the HR information on the SharePoint site, but they can't download the file itself, kind of thing. And then, of course, the digital experience monitoring, that sort of tells you how well your individual users are doing. If they call in and say, hey, I'm having trouble with this particular application, I'm out of the country, whatever the case may be, we can look into statistics and performance information around that individual user's ability to connect. So with these two things brought together, this is our unified SASE approach to modern networking these days. You've got the SD-WAN on the left-hand side and then the secure services edge on the right. Combined together, you have all of those different islands that I was showing in that previous slide brought together in a cohesive way. Now, beyond just SSE and SD-WAN, we've also got, and I apologize, I might have been a slide behind on some of these folks, but beyond the SD-WAN side of things, we've also got this dynamic segmentation. We've got a number of other products that here at Aruba will also tie into sort of what we're talking about here. Let me see if I can turn on my laser pointer here. Oh, I'm not going to mess with that just yet. But in any case, you can see here on the left-hand side, we've got the secure services edge, we've got our SD-WAN fabric, we have ClearPass, which does the network access control side of things, switch fabrics, and then of course our Wi-Fi access points. So inside of this one orange box here, we've got a number of different products that all work together in order to provide a modern security-first networking capability that's agile, secure, scalable, automated, unified, all the things that you need these days. And then from a user access point of view for the applications that are outside of your network, common policy to control how that happens. And with the SD-WAN side of things, we can say, for certain applications, we want you to take this internet provider, or for other applications, maybe we want you to send it off to the secure web gateway filtering side of things. So you have very granular abilities here to sort of dig into this. So if we dig into just the Axis product, the SSE product that we've most recently acquired, it's broken up into a few different components. ZTNA, that's Zero Trust Network Access, Secure Web Gateway, CASB, and then, of course, the experience monitoring. So all of these things are brought together in a way that makes the user's ability to access these applications streamlined, efficient, and very performant. So ZTNA, secure access to private applications in the data center or cloud. The way that you'll typically set this up is by putting a connector in the location that you want to bring users to. Maybe that's in your data center, maybe it's in a cloud provider, and then you will set up policy in the secure services edge, the Axis web interface, and you'll say these users have access to these applications, and then when they log into the front end of the Axis cloud, they will be intelligently routed to those applications using a number of different cloud providers. And of course, you can have multiple connectors to do load balancing or high availability. So there's a lot of things that you can tweak for performance or reliability or failover. So this is really the piece that we use when we talk about VPN replacement. Typically when you have a VPN, you have a user who runs a client, they connect to a network, and then for the most part, they have access to that entire network. That's really a nightmare when it comes to things like malware and preventing bad stuff from spreading and just reducing the attack surface, really. So with ZTNA, you're now providing access to individual applications, and of course you have the ability to tag them and provide common sets of applications to common types of users. That's certainly there. The ability to manage it is, I think, critical here, because if you have this neat, idea like ZTNA, but not effective way of implementing that policy, you're really no better off, and your end users are probably just going to complain. But with the way that we've integrated these products, it really makes it such that you can say, my HVAC contractors need to access these types of resources, and when I add in another contractor, I just put them in that group, and they're all set from a security standpoint. They can even log into a landing page and click tiles, kind of like you've seen maybe before in Okta. When you want to use a certain application, you just click that tile and it automatically logs you in, and away you go. Secure Web Gateway over on the right-hand side. This is really about securing internet access, kind of being that cloud firewall, if you will. And this gives you the ability to send user traffic versus breaking it maybe directly out to the internet or backhauling it to a data center. You can now send that user traffic off to the Access Cloud, and we will then filter that based, of course, on the same policies that you can set up in the web user interface, for your different users and different types of users. So adding on to that is the CASB side of things, Cloud Access Security Broker, if you're not familiar with the acronym. And this is really helping us work with third-party cloud providers, application providers like Box or SharePoint or Facebook or Salesforce, a lot of different possibilities out there, but we use their APIs to integrate so that maybe you can look at a file but not download it, as I said earlier. Things of that nature. Maybe you'd want to ensure that you don't have PII in your information that you're uploading or downloading, kind of thing. We can also scan for that and do some pretty neat stuff. There's even optical character recognition stuff that can happen in the background, so that if you had maybe an image with PII in it, we could still detect that. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the digital experience monitoring piece, helping understand how well your users are performing is critical here. So kind of looking at the workflow here, on the left-hand side, you've got, clients, branches, employees, agentless employees. They're all going to come into the front door of the Access Cloud. And that's going to then look up, are they authenticated? Do we need to integrate with a SAML-based authentication provider? We've got an internal IDP built in to Access. You can use that if you don't have anything else. But if you've got something else that you're already doing SSO and SCIM with to provision your users, we will certainly just integrate directly with that. And then, of course, this policy that you would configure goes across all of the different focus groups, the ZTNA, the SWIG, the CASB, single policy that you can implement that will cover all of that. And then on the right-hand side, you sort of see that from a CASB point of view at the very top, this is all SaaS-based applications that we integrate with their APIs. SWIG, URL filtering, we can even do SSL inspection, malware scanning. So if you want, we can put a root certificate, CA certificate on your client browsers, and that will allow us to man in the middle anything, and in a sanctioned and controlled way. And then if users are going to places they shouldn't, or maybe accidentally trying to download something or clicking a button, we can intercept that and prevent those things from happening. And then the last piece down there on the bottom right talks about how we can get into your previous kind of walled off gardens, maybe your data centers or places that you've got hosted applications, and we can either build an IPsec tunnel to access that, or we can use what I was talking about earlier, those connectors. The connectors are something that you can install and run on a VM server, maybe. It's an OVA, you can run it on bare metal. It's just something that you download, install, and you'll link that back to your Access account, and then that connector will provide, that's sort of a teleport, if you will. End users are going to come out of that connector after they hit the Access Cloud front door, and they've tried to access an application. We'll check to make sure that they're authenticated, the policy allows for it, and then we will send them through to that connector, and they'll come out on the other side like they were local to that application over there on the far right side. So it makes the end user experience really very nice, and it takes what we've all known from a VPN standpoint and turn it on its head. You're no longer connecting to another network that you could then go and port scan and run Nmap against. Now you're really provisioning users for certain applications, and then of course providing them the connectivity, back into these data centers, whatever it is, wherever those applications live. So let's talk about this kind of all brought together and put into action. So user requests access to something that's either going to be agent-based or agentless. We will automatically route that traffic. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. We'll identify, make sure that multi-factor is verified, policies evaluated, make sure that we can broker smart and surgical connections here. So you'll come into the public cloud, we will broker that connection, send it through to a connector. You'll come out on the other end, and it's just like you were in that location. So beyond that, we'll continuously inspect. We'll use that digital experience monitoring once we've provided that access to what the user needs, and then we'll be able to show you statistics, how well things are operating, all that kind of good stuff. But let's talk a little bit about the distributed cloud architecture of how this can work. And this is really some neat stuff. This is all in the background. So if you look at that access agent, the Atmos agent on an endpoint device over there in China, we see that there are multiple paths through multiple cloud providers back to, let's say, an AWS POP, it looks like maybe in Canada somewhere, that is connected to an Atmos connector, perhaps near Mount Rushmore, in the Dakotas. So this is all to say that there are going to be different performance characteristics based on the path that's chosen here. The Atmos agent on the endpoint device all the way over here is going to look at the cloud providers that it has access to. And if we see this Oracle cloud provider that's the lowest latency, let's say we chose that. And then that goes all the way across the Atlantic, comes out the other end, and you're connected to the application that hangs off of that Atmos connector. And this is able to be done in the background automatically, based on latency, extreme high availability, right? If one path goes down, we can use the other three. And it all happens, like I said, in the background. You don't have to, say, hey, I want to route this application over the Oracle backbone or anything. It automatically chooses the best path based on latency. So pretty cool stuff. And beyond that, just to kind of sort of sum up from an SSE standpoint, you can now see that we're application focused. If you want, you can still do, network ranges. That's certainly possible. But in cases where you can, using the applications that the users are going to access versus the network ranges is definitely a more secure and reduces the attack surface significantly. Remote users with ZTNA, on-site users and devices, SD-WAN fabric. So you can sort of see how all of these things begin to tie together and provide a common solution. So what's so different about this, and what else is in the marketplace? The focus is on unification here. One UI, one policy, one platform. That's probably something you've heard from a SASE standpoint, from Gartner previously. We want to simplify the policy and inspect traffic for internet, software as a service, and legacy applications. I always get people asking me about that AS400 in there, and you got the old 5270 terminals and all these things. We can work with existing stuff like that too. So I think that's really the message there. But we've also got server initiated flows. So if you've got voice over IP applications, let's say a user gets an incoming phone call, that would be an example of a server initiated flow that comes down the Atmos client to the end user, and then of course presents on their phone, whereas them making a call would not be necessarily a server initiated flow. That would be just a typical client initiated one. And then harmonizing all of this across the world with smart routing, cloud backbone on AWS, Azure, Google, and Oracle. So we're leveraging all of the cloud providers and purposely design this to enable users to access resources with or without an agent. Depends on the application, of course, But things like RDP, web browsing, file sharing, all that can be done in an agentless method if you want to. It's up to you, your choice. So with that, we'll close out the SSE side of things, and we'll talk a little bit about the SD-WAN platform and how this kind of ties together. So traditionally at a branch office, you might have SD-WAN, you might have WAN optimization, maybe a firewall, a router, something to give you visibility into things, maybe a NetFlow collector. All of that is sort of transitioning into what we're calling this secure WAN edge. We started out just mainly being a WAN optimization platform. Then we added in SD-WAN and of course all the rest of it. But it didn't all come on day one. At first we didn't have routing capabilities. We certainly didn't have firewalling capabilities. We had just added, what we thought the best way to do SD-WAN was. Turns out the industry agreed with us in a lot of respects on that SD-WAN side of things. And so we've added in some other stuff like firewalling, routing, different types of visibility and reporting. So there's a lot that you can do just in, a single appliance these days. If you want, though, we've always been able to do this. We want to be able to fit into your environment in the least disruptive way possible. That means that if you've already got a router that you want doing your routing, or you've already got a firewall that's, doing your firewall stuff, we'll tie in with that. That's no problem. We can speak standards-based protocols, BGP, OSPF, all that kind of, stuff, and work with what you've already got. No problem at all. Or if you want to have everything kind of done in one box, we can do that for you too. So it gives you a lot of choices in terms of how you want to integrate this. And then next slide here is kind of different use cases, key use cases, right? You might say, well, what if we start at the first and then just kind of go through all of them? That could be the case, but maybe one of these resonates with you more than the others, right? Maybe you've got users who are complaining about application performance, or maybe you have a firewall replacement project or router replacement project. If things are going end of life, or you want to get things like IDS, IPS, DDoS protection, VRFs, all kinds of cool stuff. This might be a good use case for you there. Cloud first organizations. One of the biggest barriers to cloud transformation initiatives by CIOs out there is knowing that things are going to work after they make this monumental change of emptying out that network room and putting everything into AWS or Azure or wherever. This is a resume generating event, a career impacting move if not done correctly. So we want to be able to support those cloud first organizations and give them multiple paths, redundant methods to get to their workloads as if they were on site. That's really the idea there. And we do all this, on a per packet, per flow, basis. We decide what applications need to be routed over what links. We will do things like forward error correction and smooth out packet loss over your internet-based links so that they can start to be used like you previously may have leveraged MPLS. But if you get rid of the packet loss that you might see occasionally on the internet, now your high bandwidth internet links can start to possibly replace those expensive legacy MPLS connections. So you get a lot of ideas that may come out from this. And then the highest quality of experience with the Edge Connect SD-WAN really is summed up in this slide. We have the ability to do different things with different applications. Maybe you want to break Office 365 directly out to the internet. We trust Office 365. We don't see any issues from a malware standpoint, whatever the case may be. We want it to just go straight out. Maybe the same for our VoIP providers or our meeting providers like Zoom. So certain things might get the benefit of just going straight out to the internet, but other stuff might be sent through maybe your secure web gateway through Access or any other cloud security provider that we support out there. But certain applications maybe you want a little bit more filtering on, or maybe they are corporate applications like Workday or Salesforce. So those can be treated differently than your direct internet breakout applications. And then maybe you've got guest internet access, or you've got certain applications you just don't trust like BitTorrent or Nutella. Maybe you want those to go back to a data center that you run through a big firewall that does fancy stuff. Who knows? So a lot of different behaviors can be implemented here based on what application the users are using. And then, of course, highest quality of experience too, right? So I mentioned a little bit about that path conditioning, the forward error correction, coalescing bunch of small packets into bigger ones, and dealing with out of order packets. If you've got different providers that you're load balancing across, sometimes the second packet might arrive before the first one did. So in that scenario, of course, we put Humpty Dumpty back together again and sort of reorder everything. But WAN optimization is also a big piece of this. If you've got a 1 gig connection in New York and a 1 gig connection in LA, and you try and FTP a file between those two sites, you are not going to get 1 gig. You get about 11 megabits if you're dealing with, let's say, no packet loss and just 40 milliseconds of latency. So with that, we can do TCP acceleration, something that satellite providers have been doing for quite a while as well. We can also do network memory, so we can say if we've seen this traffic already before, we can just replay it local to the user at the destination location, the appliance there. So we won't even impact your bandwidth downloading the same file like a Windows update 50 times. We'll just pull it down once and then serve it up locally the remaining time. So there's some neat stuff that you can do, with SD-WAN that takes existing links that you might have already had and makes them better. In multi-cloud networking, you can really start to build some impressive SD-WAN fabrics these days. We are in all of the major cloud marketplaces. You can put a Silver Peak or Edge Connect node in any of those locations really easily. Couple clicks and you're done. Of course, you've got your main SD-WAN fabric that all of your offices and data centers and remote users are connected to. You've got all these different applications that might live in the clouds, different workloads, different cloud providers, and all of this is orchestrated by a single orchestrator. So pretty neat. And beyond that, let's see here, how much time do we have? Got a few more minutes. So we've also implemented a next generation firewall, zone-based stateful firewall. And the ICSA, maybe you've heard of them, they have done firewall certification in the past. The most common certification that people would get is like a corporate firewall type certification. They came out with a program called Secure SD-WAN certification before Verizon ended up closing them down. So we are the only vendor, and will be the only ever vendor, that has obtained the Secure SD-WAN certification, which is a superset of the firewall certification. As you can imagine, beyond just looking at a purpose-built firewall, SD-WAN's doing a lot more stuff, right? You've got applications being dropped into certain business intent overlays and routed differently. All of those things need to be taken into account when you look at the firewall performance and how well it operates. And we had to put some stuff into the product. ICSA said, hey, you need to have a button that you can click to see denies that are logged and things of that nature. So we went ahead and put those things in before they granted us that certification. So like I said, we are the only one and will be the only one ever since ICSA has now closed shop. That was a Verizon company that they ended up shut down, I believe. So in any case, a lot of work went into that, and we've got a real deal. We're very proud of this firewall that we've implemented or integrated into our SD-WAN architecture. So key differentiators here: multi-cloud ready, enhanced security, highest quality of experience. As I mentioned earlier, you've got a couple of different types of Edge Connect SD-WAN. You've got the advanced secure SD-WAN, the formerly Silver Peak product, which is our Edge Connect SD-WAN. We also have Edge Connect SD Branch. This is sort of kind of a light version. There aren't anything like business intent overlays and advanced application-based routing, but it will have redundant IPsec tunnels that can use multiple providers, so that if you lose one, it can fail over to another. Onboard LTE, cool stuff like that. But then lastly, that Edge Connect micro branch, I think we're going to see a huge influx of interest on this, because we've got a lot of companies that have deployed that Edge Connect SD-WAN up there at the very top, and they've got a significant, implementation, right? All of their, offices, data centers, multiple countries, nice SD-WAN fabric. And they want to connect other users into that may not fit the typical SD-WAN site characteristic. Maybe they don't have multiple internet providers at everybody's house. Maybe you don't want to put an expensive SD-WAN appliance at everyone's house either. So we made this the Edge Connect micro branch solution here, where effectively you broadcast a wireless SSID at someone's location, home, office, that kind of thing, and then an SD or an IPsec tunnel is formed on the back end of that access point to the SD-WAN fabric. And now that user at home can connect to the SD-WAN fabric and any workloads that are available, any applications, that kind of thing. So with that, I can dig in a little bit more to the network access control side of things, talk a little bit about ClearPass and how this kind of works, where we bring in authentication and the ability to enforce whether or not users should be allowed onto the network in the first place. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but suffice to say that Central is the ability for ClearPass to provide authentication onto switch ports using 802.1x, onto wireless networks using maybe EAP TLS or EAP PEEP. Maybe you've got different guest networks that you have a registration page for. All of this can be done in ClearPass. So our ability to do device discovery and profiling, one role, one network, access privileges, event-based actions like change of authorities. Like if you say a user should no longer be on the network, this will send a message to the access point and actually disconnect them. There are a lot of things that you can do within ClearPass to make sure that your users are doing what they should. And one of the examples I like to use here is, let's say you've got an iPad in a conference room that's used to control meeting environments. Well, what happens if we see that iPad, going out to the internet and downloading stuff from websites? We can look at what the device is and what it should be doing based on its role, and then kind of find out, hey, is it doing something it shouldn't be? We can even do advanced things from a Bonjour standpoint, like if you're doing AirPlay with Apple devices, that says, hey, you're on this access point. This conference room is also close to you on this access point. I'm going to give you this conference room's Apple TV as an AirPlay destination when you go to AirPlay something. And it's based on where you are. And it's not going to give you all of the, let's say, Apple TVs in that particular building, because that might be way overload. You'd never find the right one. But if we can tell you the only one that's close to you based on where you're at, that could be really, really useful. And then, kind of tying this together, we can, bring fine-grained segmentation into this SD-WAN network based on roles and policies, and tying in with ClearPass. So pretty cool. In summary, we're hoping to help accelerate your journey to SASE. We started off with some users will start with SD-WAN, some users will start with SSE. At the end of it, we want you right here in the middle with a SASE completed, transformation initiative. And in order, to help accomplish that, we've got a number of different tools that we can help simplify and transform and ultimately unify what you've got from a resource and data center perspective, and all of your different applications that you're using and where they're at on network or off network. All of these things kind of work together here. Benefits, of course, you have a unified security posture. You've reduced the complexity. Your users are having a good experience, and everything you've done is a nicely scalable solution. So with that, I'll go ahead and end the presentation, and Mike and Josh will go ahead and turn things back over to you.
Thanks, Russell. So I guess, Mike, I think maybe what we could do is turn off everybody's or allow everybody to talk so that they have questions they can ask them. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right, I'm gonna do that. So Mike's gonna tell a story real quick about a time when he got in a really hairy situation, and it's very embarrassing.
Yeah, I would love to do that right now. No, I honestly want to say thank you to Josh and Russell. I know they put a lot of time into put this whole thing together. It's tough to sometimes put the whole thing together for a specific partner, for a group of customers. And as Laketec, our job is to be that trusted vendor for all our customers and make sure we bring solutions to you guys that we back and we believe could be impactful to your organization. As you know, we don't sell everything. We vet things out to make sure our 33 engineers know how to configure, how to support. So these types of products, what we want to bring to you guys as a resource. So I want to say thank you everybody for jumping on here. But once Josh figures out the unmute button, please feel free to chime in with questions. But in the end, if you want to reach out to your Laketec rep, so you can have a further conversation about this whole stack of products that Russell dove through. I mean, you guys have heard us talk a clear pass ad nauseum, probably had Phil or Brad in your networks configuring that. But if you want to dive into the SASE platform or the SSE product specifically, and happy to set up conversations and dive into that deeper from a technical level with our team.
So I think I got everybody's mic available. So if anybody has any questions, and while people are thinking, I will throw just two things out there. One, Laketec is a fabulous partner in the Ohio area. And one thing that not a lot of people know, but Aruba as an organization, we have levels of competency for engineers. And Laketec has something that's called an ambassador engineer, and there's only 7 of these engineers in the United States. 7 across everybody who sells any Aruba technology. And Phil, if you know Phil, he is the ambassador. He's a very, very highly regarded, very intelligent, very capable network engineer who works for Laketec, who could answer any questions you guys might have about any of our product segments or anything we're doing. He's a really smart guy. So if you haven't met him, I'd encourage you to give Mike a call and be like, hey, I'd like to just talk to Phil because he's super smart, really could help you with any problem you might have.
And a team that Phil leads. You can't forget the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, the 33 engineers that we have, and big stack of that being the network side dedicated to Aruba on that side. And we have our security stack and our cloud stack and our collaboration or voice stack. But Phil leads that network and wireless stack over there with Brad and Ryan. I mean, Anthony. I mean, we can name them all as our organization works. So we dive down deep into that relationship based, support with everybody. So yeah, do not hesitate to reach out to your rep, reach out to me, reach out to whomever at Laketec, and we can set up another conversation to dive into your network here. Any questions? I think we figured out the unmute button. If you guys have anything that you want to ask right now while Russell's still on the line, we got everybody, or anything else you guys may think of. Happy to answer any questions here as we finish off with 14 minutes to go. And no questions are okay. But everybody, valuable time to get back in your day. We understand that. Okay. Well, reach out if you would like to. Josh, Russell, thank you again for running through
Hey
all
guys,
this.
I just thought of a question.
What you got,
Yeah,
Jeff?
Jeff.
So we're a current Silver Peak customer, I guess, for lack of a better way to say it. We implemented Silver Peak when it was actually Silver Peak. How do you guys integrate something like that into the new management platform, or just a high level?
So are you meaning like Central, like Aruba Central, or?
Yeah, that's.
So ultimately, you're going to find the same platform managing everything, right? It's just going to take us a little while to get there, we feel like. So we've done some initial API integrations between the Silver Peak Orchestrator and Aruba Central. So you're able to take your locations and put them on the map in Aruba Central, and then if you click on them, you can hot link over to the orchestrator for that particular appliance. But we don't have it really tied in, ultimately down the the way we see things going. It's probably going to be like an iframe at some point where you see the orchestrator inside of Central before it turns into a completely unified application where everything is just like you're used to already in Central. But we don't want to take away from what our like you, existing Silver Peak users, have come to rely on from an orchestration standpoint. We want to make sure that that is as high quality as it can be before we make any adjustments to that. So I don't know if I answered your question there very well, but ultimately, I think you're right. It is all going to go to one place, but it's just going to take some time to get there.
I guess along those same lines, will the hardware we have today that's branded Silver Peak need to be replaced?
No.
At some point?
No.
Yes.
It will not.
Yes. All hardware does retire. So at some point.
Well, you know what I mean. To move over
Not
to
immediately.
We're not going to
the
come at you
managed-
and say, you know, if those have a Silver Peak logo on them, we need to swap them out for the. I mean, of course, you will have to replace hardware at some point, but it's not going to be an artificial need to replace. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions out there?
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time. Again, reach
So-
out any other questions you want to follow up with.
Yep.
Sure.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Josh.
See you guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.